Support Services here at Shepherd. So this is just, we're basically going to go through some exercises with you, but overall we're just going to try to, how do I say it? Just, explain some of the disabilities, what they look like in the classroom, what their accommodations might look like. And I'll also, at the end, go through a little bit of the process for students to register with Disability Support Services.
My name is Deborah Baker. I am an academic retention specialist with the TRIO Student Support Services program. 3 of the criteria that students have to meet in order to be in TRIO is they're either the first ones in their family to attend college, that's earning a 4-year degree. A parent could have earned a 2-year degree and still qualify for our program. The second is income eligibility, and that's outlined by the Department of Education. And the third is students with disabilities. So our office works very closely with Annie and trying to get accommodations for our students. So we thought it would be a good idea just to put this on. This is Different Not Broken is one of the FIEX classes that I just did this past semester, and I got a lot of positive feedback from the students. So I thought it would be interesting to bring it in from a teaching perspective. So like Annie said, we have a few slides. Not a lot of pictures, but some good information. And we're just going to go over the slides, but this is a very interactive activity, so we will expect some participation. Okay? So some of the typical disabilities that we see here on the Shepherd campus are students with learning disabilities, ADHD, autism, which is a huge population that's actually growing, physical disabilities, visual impairments, and hearing impairments. This first video that we have for you guys is a simulation of what it's like for a person with ADHD. So I hope you'll find this useful. Let me try to pull it up here.
Basically, it means you have trouble filtering your thoughts. It's very hard to figure out what is important and what is not important. I think it's one of the ADHD are easily rectified. Science sources.
We got some speakers coming.
So, we would like to know what it's like to have ADHD. Basically, it means you have trouble filtering your thoughts. It's very hard to figure out what is important and what is not important. I think we can all agree that with ADHD are easily distracted by science sources.
She's the most receptive game ever. Oh, that's so good. The way that the mountain took the guy's face and he like, okay, that's a spoiler. I shouldn't put that in here. There you
All right, so I think that kind of get the gist of that. So what are some of the things that you all picked up from the video? What are some of the symptoms of people with
Well, I just
ADHD?
want to share this. It's a wonderful book. It's an older book, and you ladies are really familiar with it. This is the How Well book called The Living Book Instruction. And I know years and years ago, my daughter used to say to me, "Mother, if you were a child today, they'd put you on a mental." And one of the things I loved about that book is that, yes, you know, there's all this chaos in your brain, and your brain runs a million miles an hour. But if you get the right instruction, and if you can learn the key yourself to be able to harness that energy, you can grow to be an old person and still accomplish a huge amount because you can do 14 different things at the same time. And so, I mean, I think looking at ADHD as a positive and trying to give students that kind of attitude along with, you know, what is going to be the key to harnessing your own is really, really important. I had one student who was going to be a teacher a few years ago said, "Gosh, I wish I were ADHD." So, I mean, you can take that negative and turn it into a positive.
And a lot of people have, so.
Yeah.
You take so many of the real extraordinary people in the world, Albert Einstein, you know, these were people who had ADHD and learning disabilities. So there may be an advantage. It's good to put a positive spin.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that. And that's with any disability, really.
It's just a difference in ability, and that's why we named this different, not broken. But somebody with a mind like that, with ADHD, is very different from mine, where I can process things, you know, one thing at a time. Person with ADHD may not have the capability of doing that. And that's pretty much what we're trying to point out with the video, and how different we all are.
Yes. And I think too that in the classroom, you know, these things, you know, are very important. You might think, you know, for example, you have someone who doesn't seem like they're paying attention. And so, you know, there's a possibility they may have, you know, ADHD, or that they need to get up and walk around maybe, or they're, you know, just fidgeting at their desk, or impulsivity too, where they do something that seems very inappropriate. And depending on the inappropriateness, obviously, you know, it could be a conduct issue, but you also have to keep in mind that they, you know, again, if they have more than one of these things or whatever, you know, there's a possibility they have ADHD. So.
Some other ways that people might be affected by ADHD. Amy just talked about this. Not paying attention. You know, you may think that somebody's may not be paying attention. However, there are probably a million things that are running through their mind at that particular moment. And I think the hardest part about ADHD, like with most invisible disabilities, is that you can't see it. So it's like, you know, to you or me, it may just look like, you know, this person isn't very involved. And I think, you know, as instructors, we tend to take that personally when there's nothing personal about it. Let's see. We talked about becoming distracted easily, forgetful about daily activity, chores. One of the best things that I think we've been able to do for students is have them use like a calendar, one of the first things I'll have students do in my FIEX class is to create a working calendar that they can put their activities and their class schedule, because sometimes you can even forget about going to class just having ADHD.
Yeah, and I do often with students who have ADHD and other students with disabilities too, I will do some organizational, as Evora mentioned, but I will also create a kind of a weekly calendar with them so that we figure out, like, you know, when maybe they could study, you know, when we put in due dates for all of their, their tests and then their assignments, things like that. So, because the organizational piece is a big piece of ADHD, so.
Some of the accommodations that Disability Support Services might recommend for a student or maybe a part of their IEP already is extended test taking time, distraction reduction environment. So maybe putting them in isolated area during testing, extended time for assignments, permission to record class lectures, and fidget toys.
Yeah.
We were talking about, we thought about bringing some just so you can fidget with them while you're, sitting here listening to us. But they actually help because you're able to do something and maybe pay attention to the instruction at the same time.
Yeah.
And just to share a quick story, I used to, when I taught pre-K through middle school, I used to teach a chess class, and there was a boy there that had ADHD. And I used to, if you've ever seen the grip masters like that, and yeah, I do that. I have horrible joints, so I just would regularly do that when I taught, and he asked if he could use it. I gave it to him, and he settled right down.
Yeah.
And immediately was just playing, and it was the most attentive and focused he'd ever been.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so my principal was like, Jared, we have to invest it for you.
Yeah, right.
Definitely good employees.
It's a great story, yeah.
One other comment, if I may,
Yes.
with regard to fidget toys.
Mm-hmm.
My colleagues would tell you I have this big drawer thing that I roll around and into all of my classes. Drawers, individual drawers. In those individual drawers are a number of items, and each drawer gets set on a table in my classroom. The fidget toys are always the first to come out of those drawers.
Yeah.
And that is because, regardless of ADD, ADHD, whatever we have, neuroscientists have told us that the human brain necessitates movement for learning. It has to have something. Even if I'm walking around the classroom, it has to have movement affiliated with the learning process.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point, yeah.
Great. Okay, so for this first exercise, I'm gonna have you break up in pairs. Everybody stand up, stand up.
Oh, yeah.
What are we gonna do? And then some.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right.
No, I'm gonna go with him. I'm gonna go with Larry.
He wants to play
There
the
you
game.
So we're gonna pass these out.
I'm in charge of dereliction of duty though. I do wide angles. It has to be pairs. They're all pairs.
Take one.
Two.
Right, so it's
Yeah.
every other person. Okay.
For what?
We do that.
Every two people.
Two.
Two.
Just, keep one blindfold for your group.
We need one more.
We'll work together, man.
I have.
Work, yeah.
There's one person.
Except we don't got one husband. Oh, you don't.
Ann can work with this group and maybe you can work.
Yeah.
Wait,
Oh, yes.
you can't.
I don't care. No.
That's what I said.
Yeah, so it's 113.
He and I work together. How about that?
Okay, so we'll put you as three.
Okay,
And that's fine, one person will be blindfolded,
okay.
so.
Ivor, is it okay if he and I work together?
Oh, yeah, it's fine, except we don't have,
Another
Yeah.
puzzle.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I have some in there in my office. I did that.
Oh, that was.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, we got it. Oh, you guys,
We can do
you have
another.
an extra?
And
yes.
we could do,
Okay.
another one.
Two's on her list. I'm gonna put the mask on now. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm gonna try.
Okay, so one person is gonna have a seat.
One person has a
Is it a blindfolded one?
seat. Is it?
The person who's blindfolded, yes, is gonna have a seat.
Okay.
Okay.
I have my glasses on, I can't see well.
Oh, yeah. Where is it? Let's see.
Okay, and the person who's blindfolded should also have the puzzle. Exactly.
Guys and grapes.
Grapes. Just be grapes.
Am I supposed to look now
No.
or still be blindfolded?
So be blindfolded. So,
I thank you.
yes. And this last one here. All right. So you two
You can dump your puzzles out.
Yeah, and the person who's blindfolded should put the puzzle in front of them.
You.
So the person or persons, you could have two people, you could have two voices, right? Because somebody might be able to explain something differently. Who are standing beside or behind the person with the blindfold is going to be able to verbalize instructions. So they can verbally give instructions. However, the person with the blindfold on cannot ask questions and cannot say anything. So you have to find,
And the person without the blindfold cannot touch the puzzle, right?
right. So let's see, we're gonna put you on a 5-minute timer.
So what you're gonna do is you're basically gonna instruct them how to put this together.
Okay, so yeah, so yeah, so while, I know some of the puzzles are 48 pieces and some of them are 100 pieces. So while the person who is blindfolded,
We can do it.
you can help them turn the puzzle pieces over. Yeah, you can.
Okay, so let me help you.
So let's get those turned over and then we're going to start trying to let your timer. And yeah, I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
Okay, yeah.
And so, tell you about the folders or what.
Maybe find some.
Alright, so they're all right.
Okay.
Okay, so.
So you,
Have a pretty big.
All right, so does everybody have them turned over?
Yeah, we do.
All right, I'm gonna start my timer.
We go.
Yeah, go, I'm sorry.
So those two pieces you have in your hand right now, I think they actually go together. So you rotated it with your right hand, rotate it back to how it was. Actually try that right there. Another way, and then do it onto the right side. So if you feel with your left hand, there's a little piece jutting out.
That's the corner piece.
With your left hand, if you can feel the little piece jutting out. Yep, exactly. So try to put that in one of those holes. It looks like it might fit. Maybe it was the colors kind of match.
I don't know, bring them down to make sure that you feel good. That's what you push it inside, the ones in case there is shit, but that one's Alright.
So there's a green piece, another green piece, bottom left hand, up over those.
Yes.
So that's a green.
Place that one, put it down, there's one right
A little higher, a little further towards
right
the
down
back.
here. You're not picking up, separating your ones well enough. The ones with no edges up like
Let's grab some of the other green pieces. There's another green piece, yes, all the way to the left. Okay, so let's try to keep this part of that.
Well, but it'll make it
Okay,
easy.
there's the other, that is the bottom, that's the top left.
Oh, wait.
Yep, just like that.
You 48.
We do, we're the lucky
Oh,
ones.
right there, your third finger.
Oops.
I'm sorry, I'm not gonna give you the directions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So let's try to get another green one.
Right there. Right there, you're right.
All the ones to the right, and you're touching over the
No, just look at right, but they're close. They're
Okay,
close.
let's see what's underneath your left right hand.
You can
Okay, so maybe the bottom left piece, the one that's all the way on the bottom and
And
you're
then
gonna
right to top, got it in your hand, right hand, top. Yep. And that one is,
No, that one's supposed to be.
that's the left side. Yeah, you're getting closer.
Okay, so if you take your left hand, move it slightly to the left to get this other green piece. There's that one.
Spotty.
A little bit higher, a little bit to the left, a little bit higher. Okay, so there's that piece and then the one underneath it.
Right there.
Grab that one with your right hand. Alright, and then you're gonna grab, yes, the one that's in your left hand, and let's try to put that together. So you feel the little piece that's jutting out on the right hand. So we're gonna put that, not in that hand now, so we have a little bit. Alright, we got one. Okay, so we got his head. Let's see if we can find the rest of his face.
Slowly up. Okay.
Maybe one of the green pieces that we have.
Very good.
If you use your left hand, so you can see his face. So see if you can fit that piece in the piece that's jutting out.
So that might put together.
Forward, backwards. That's it.
Okay, so let's look for another green right there. So if you move your left hand to the top, to get another green, a little bit lower. Yeah, so those are green, so you can grab those.
That's the lower. Just to your right.
More than one of those.
That's the one.
Okay, so if you take, the one that's not your, we're having fun here. The one with your right hand, to the left of it, there should be a piece. Nope, it's to the bottom, yep, that one.
Try to get you another green.
Alright, see if we can fit that one in with the little piece that's jutting out.
We did not get one. All right, let's put those back down.
So
Now, over to the left, over, a little bit more stop.
You're just
Bring your hand up
what you want us to do.
a little bit,
No,
and
it's
down.
under
So that
maybe
maybe
the other part, keep rotating it.
that might be important. So go back up to the top.
Yeah, so there's not that one, below that, there's a piece that's sticking out. And then that, no, with your left hand, sorry.
And over a little bit more.
In your left hand, below that little hole, there should be a little piece that's sticking out.
Try to fit it into
You know,
1
I'm
minute
stitching
stretching.
that one. All right, 5 minutes is up.
This is a
Look at how close we were.
All right.
Can I do it on there?
All right, you can take the one foot off.
And I would be like, oh, right there.
So how hard was this?
Pretty hard. Pretty hard.
What made it hard?
I know for me, not being able to speak and actually get the directions that I wanted, that was difficult for me.
What was your best?
Like, I remember us talking about the colors, and it was kind of like me wanting to know which color belonged here or which color belonged here. I think I would have been able to piece it together from that.
Okay.
Right, so how was it for others that had the blindfold on?
I thought it was relaxing.
Well, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
So how were the instructions? Were they effective, were they?
Clear.
Lacking.
They were lacking. How so? Give us an example.
Well, there was a mismatch between where I was, what I needed to do, and how I needed to do it. And basically, it was, what the heck, I'm moving pieces around. I mean, why, where, when,
That's all you can,
how?
right, yeah.
So it felt frustrating. And there was a lack of clear direction. There was no motive. It seemed random.
Because I think it would be easy as a mentor to be frustrated. Like, oh, he's not listening to me. I said this or that, or you're struggling, but it was nice that she was patient.
Okay, so you guys got quite a few pieces together. How did you manage to do that?
I just stopped it.
We're gonna
start working on
It's gonna be like a.
How do you think you got those put together?
I think we had like a mutual system, like it was just like, we almost always started with my right hand, your right hand forward slowly, stops, like to your right, down, you know,
Okay.
and then this time, you know, it's like left hand forward, it was just a simple system.
So sort of like a crane,
Yeah.
almost. So
One of those
Laura was
things
a
that
crane
like at the
operator.
thing where you grab a toy.
Right.
So how was it for those giving instructions?
That was the easiest part. We could just chatter and confuse her.
You realize how bad you are at avoiding language that isn't helpful, right? You know, so to
Right.
say, oh, move your hand over there, I guess.
Right.
There.
You know, there.
This would be a good exercise for teaching students to write too, because they tend to be very vague when they write.
So I worked with Ruth for 10 years or so. It's a good thing because all of a sudden I felt like she was, no offense, completely stupid because she was so limited in what she could do. And I felt really frustrated. I thought it was going really well at first. And then, other way.
my categorization? These are all flat,
And it is-
two nodes, and these
it
are all
was
flat.
really- it was
They
really
also had
frustrating.
100 Ps.
It was really frustrating because I couldn't
Oh,
access,
yeah, they
I guess
have-
what I'm saying is I couldn't access what I knew was her intelligence. And
Oh, yeah.
it was
Right.
sort of analogous, I guess, what we're working
Did you notice my school system?
No.
So,
Yeah, I did.
so I guess I was gonna ask you what this, was the disability, we were, whatever, but I'm sure you all figured that one out. I think at the moment, we do have visually impaired students. We do not have any blinds, completely blind, legally blind students on campus, but we do have visual impairment. So, so for, if a student was blind, the common accommodations would be Braille, test reading, text to audio technology or software, and audio books. We do have quite a few visually impaired, and for those students, often it's print enlarging for tests or any kind of handouts. I'm trying to think what else.
Large print books.
Yes, large print books, right. So, any questions?
What about the technology? Is it helpful for them to, have a tablet that can really make the text awfully large? Is that particularly helpful? Can we provide that for them?
We can. We can. So, yes, that's a possibility. What we can do, actually, what we really do is get large print books. And we have access to certain companies or whatever that will provide that to us. So,
I'm
yes.
finding that almost all of my students now are not bringing hard copy books into class.
Right.
They're bringing electronic books. And,
Yes.
what kills me is they're even looking at them on their tiny little phones. But it does seem like there is a universal access to the electronic books, at least in what the field I teach.
Yes. Yeah, and there is, and you can enlarge it on there. So I think that probably, and that's certainly the direction we're all going.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to bring up was with electronics. We have, for example, Mastering Biology, it's an online learning system. It uses a browser, so they can, use their browser to maybe enlarge, but I suspect, I have two students that are visually impaired, and I suspect that they sometimes have problems and they touch the wrong button, and they don't realize that they touched the wrong button, or they press submit and the incorrect radio button that they intended was highlighted. And that's what I'm wondering about is accommodations for these online programs where there's relatively limited ability to expand, and if the animations you really can't, maybe if you can, if you have a really big screen, project it on a projector like this, but then you lose fidelity, you lose resolution. So makes it worse. Yeah, so it seems to me, especially with the figures and the animations on the online learning tools that we use, it doesn't help, it hurts because we don't have access to a higher resolution one for them.
Right. So, yeah, so, that's something that I can look into and just see if, if there's any software out there that we could use. But I know with the online pieces, it's really...
I don't think they suspect.
Yeah.
I have a suspicion.
Well, we can talk a little bit about that too, and I can look into if you give me the sites or whatever.
Well,
or
just
or Sakai.
Just tools for controlling browsers.
Right.
I mean, we'll use Sakai, so maybe just Mozilla Firefox to be more specific. Maybe there are apps that are out there.
Right.
Or something to try to organize the web pages so it's not so crazy.
Yeah.
And then they have pop-ups, and then there'll be a pop-up, and sometimes I don't think they notice.
Right,
Pop-up.
right.
And then there are balloons, and if you don't have the mouse in the right spot, you don't see the balloon.
Right, gotcha.
And then the balloon's either like this.
So is there no audio?
Yeah.
There's audio.
Some of them are videos with audio to them.
Okay.
And some of the videos are very nice. They have text written of the audio on the right. That's kind of like an equivalent of closed caption that stays up there for much longer. So that they can just read.
Right.
And it doesn't scroll either, it pops up for you. But yeah, I'm starting to see living nightmares for some of my students who are visually impaired. And I don't think they suspect. I think they're not, some of them, they're really great students, and I think they're not doing as well as would be expected with the online
Right.
assignments, because they're pressing the correct button or pressing a button when they didn't think they pressed a button, and there's.
Right. Okay, well, and we could probably find some adaptive maybe tools.
There's gotta be stuff out there, they're finding these kids ahead of time and letting them know about it. One of mine has some kind of a affiliation with a group, and they pay for her to have printers and to print things large and things like that. They actually bought her special printer and special scanner. And it's like, that's nice for the printed things, that's nice for things that are of a resolution, that when we do a lot of this online
Right.
stuff.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's a very good point, and I'll look into that for you.
Yeah.
And see if we can figure something out. Are these students who are registered with PSF, do you know? Just.
Yes.
Okay,
One you met, and then the other one, she's been
Right.
there for years.
okay. So we've got,
Another exercise? Yeah.
okay. Okay. Oh, woohoo! So you can put up, if you're not still doing your puzzle. I know, it is.
You finished?
Okay, so for this one, we're gonna have each group, and you can try to pair or choose this time.
All right, so
I'm gonna pass these down.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
Oh, you guys are bored fast here.
All right, so. Does someone want to move over here? Oh, you have to go to class, okay. Well, we'll figure it out there. I think maybe two. All right. One more person. So should we do the singing, because it doesn't clear up?
Is that, are there enough?
For me to say.
Were there enough?
Yeah, well, no. Well, we have to.
I have some things, right,
together.
Does everybody have a pen or a pencil or?
All right, we're gonna have to figure out something.
over there.
Where? Yeah, that's fine, that's fine.
All right.
Okay, so for this activity, I know it may be a little difficult for you guys, but you should be facing, one person should be sitting at the table so they can write. The other person should be behind them, facing the opposite direction. You can stand, you can arrange your chairs, whatever you feel comfortable with. Yeah.
Sure.
Not sure which part that is here. You're supposed to stand.
So the person standing or sitting behind is gonna take a picture of that.
Picture.
Yeah.
It's really great art.
This is one of my favorites. So for this activity, what we're gonna do, I'm just gonna time it just because we're running a little low on time. But the person in the back is going to describe the picture to the other person, and that person has to draw it. So there's no right or wrong answer. Just draw the best that you can. And you guys can go ahead and get started.
So let's start.
All right.
There's a straight line back towards the left about 2 inches. And then the ground about an inch to the downward right. And then another about 2 inches straight line to the right. And then slight curve about 2.5 inches straight down. And it should be just past the middle of the page. I might be giving you crazy inches. And then we're going to go back to the left. It's going to be a pretty straight line to the left, about 3 to 4 inches. And then another little like downward,
all the way up and then down and then back down again. So there should be a space of edge and the back arches.
so that goes ahead with the curve from
Now it's going to be long curve and the mouth is going to down. You're going to have the back curve coming right around some top of it. Kind of sticks out and then so like then draw it pointed to the middle, and then grab the middle finger kind of go back then take a curve. That's okay. And then you go to the other way, and then when you get to the
It's a lot bigger than I thought.
and stop where you started.
5 seconds.
Wow.
And then you're gonna go
And then we're
up,
done.
all right?
It's like a U shape.
Yeah.
So you went straight down.
Your time.
So you-
That is wild.
Drawing's not my
Go
forte.
back down.
Wow, we missed the time.
Yeah.
I think
No, we got it in the wrong direction, guys.
So share your pictures with everybody.
This is what we did.
It's relative.
Don't suppose you guys are pretty close.
I was like.
So this exercise is to help people gain understanding about intellectual disabilities. Oftentimes, people who have intellectual disabilities, they have an issue with understanding what other people are saying to them or what they mean. They have a hard time understanding social cues, have difficulty comprehending information. Sometimes they need more time for what may appear to be a simple task to others. They don't understand when someone is making fun of them. They find it hard to write or even draw. And they may not understand when somebody's telling them something wrong. So those are some of the characteristics of people with intellectual disabilities. How might this affect a student in college? How might it affect them? What do you think, Annie?
So for, some of the processing, they don't always understand assignments. The processing is just different. So, for example, maybe going over, the assignment with them with details, let them ask questions, things like that. And that goes for anything, like tests, for example. Even if the instructions are written at the top, a lot of times, they see, how do I want to say that? Basically that their processing is sometimes slower, so their understanding of those instructions is slower, and often they don't always understand, even like simple instructions.
It doesn't
Don't you
always
think
matter.
sometimes it's good as well to give instructions in a lot of different ways?
Yes.
You can give them verbally, you can have them written down, you can put them on the board, you can show them a sample. And I've found that students really work well with models. They like to see
models and
Yeah, that's a good
visual.
one. That's a really good one. And I'll meet with some of my students, and I don't have a problem. Sometimes they're not as open to going to their instructors or going to a friend because they don't want to appear dumb. But they'll come to me and I'll sit down and I'll say, well, let's read the instructions. And I'll go over it step by step with them to help them understand what this assignment is about and how they can go about doing it.
One of the things that I found that kind of breaks down that barrier, because there's always a barrier between you and students, and you have to find, without being their buddy, which some of us just can't be their buddies. But I found that, particularly I do this in the 102 class, but in some instances, and we talk about this in other classes, for them to have some understanding of what their own intellectual abilities are and how they perceive and how they learn. Like we do Gardner's different types of multiple intelligences, and they analyze themselves, they take a little bit of a test. Once they become cognizant of the different ways they perceive, it really does help them in class. And what I really enjoy is when they're doing some group work or some peer evaluation, and they're really giving hints to each other about, well, here is a way that you can learn how to be in class on time, and you can do this, you can do that. And they take instruction much better from their peers than they do from us. But to help them understand their own intellectual abilities and how they perceive, I think it's really a good idea. We've got an introductory class where that can work. It's great.
That's one of the first things I do in my PHYEX class. Very first week of school, we're doing a learning assessment. And so that they can understand what type of learner they are. And then we have one more invisible disability. And I wanted to talk to you guys about the flu. How many of you ever had the flu? Tell me some of your symptoms. What were they like? Muscle soreness, aches, fever, lethargic. Those are some of the same symptoms that people with depression feel. So, a lot of times we think, well, just get out of it. Pull yourself out of it. Go out, have some fun, and you can pull yourself out of it. But sometimes it's not as easy as that. I was talking with my old college roommate. She and I recently got back in contact, and she explained it to me like this. She said that a person with depression have very elevated levels of interleukin-6 and C-reactive proteins. And basically, these are the chemicals that control inflammation in the body. When you think of diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, where it's an autoimmune, where the body is actually working against some of its good cells, she said that a person with depression actually feels like they have the flu sometimes because these elevated levels of those chemicals increase, and it makes the body feel like it's inflamed. So the body is actually taking on inflammation.
How can you reduce those levels?
A lot of times chemical,
Medication?
medication.
What about with food and exercise?
I have read some things about that. I was recently studying how cinnamon is made and how the compounds in cinnamon. And they said that cinnamon is a very good, has a lot of chemical components to help fight off inflammation.
And
didn't know that.
Yeah, and I think, it's always a good idea to look at it holistically, what things you can do. The part of the problem, though, is that the person who, has depression, when you're in that state, because it's more than, you have these kind of flu-like symptoms, but you also, have these, you feel empty, you feel sad, and it's not just sad, but hopeless. And so sometimes suggestions often end up, they can actually make the person feel like they're not doing enough. Like, oh, I should be doing, this and this and this. I think it is an important point, maybe when they come out of the depression, or maybe even during. But again, you have to be very careful because, there's a loss of interest, a lot of decreased energy or fatigue. A lot of people with depression, sometimes will sleep like throughout the day, throughout the night. They won't get out of bed. And they have difficulty concentrating, difficulty with their appetite. Often, they may end up eating, a lot, or not at all.
What about serotonin and melatonin? Those, I'm assuming that you can increase those hormones in your body, that would counter depression. And are there any foods or supplements, besides just buying over the counter,
Right.
that could help?
So you mean besides prescription drugs?
Right.
Yeah, there are herbs that they talk about. I know St. John's wort, but you wouldn't want to take that along with an antidepressant. And I know that there, like you said, exercise, and I think there are other, I don't know if you know of other vitamins and herbs that can really help with depression or other mood.
Yeah, I don't know like any offhand other than cinnamon, just because I came across that the other day. It was ironic that I kind of came across it, but I know that there are some holistic doctors like I was watching on YouTube that recommend certain foods for depression.
Yeah, I think it's a very probably low fat, just healthy eating, lots of greens and vitamins
And less sugar.
Yeah, sugar.
Less sugar is a big one.
Soft drinks are not good.
Yeah, I know that people go to that to make themselves feel better, but it's not. I don't know. I think
Do you include anxiety with that depression?
Well, and they can go hand in hand, absolutely. And that's often the case, that depression and anxiety kind of go hand in hand. Sometimes not. But But yes,
Because a lot of students have normal anxiety, but sometimes it's out of control anxiety, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between
yes.
normal and not out of control.
Do you have any idea why there are more anxious students today and why there are more students with degrees of autism and ADHD? Is there a reason? Is there something in our environment? Yes.
I got excited. I was wondering if maybe there's the same amount, but we're just more aware of it, so we can diagnose it more.
I mean, it's just, there's so many changes in society, you just look at the difference from when you grow up. These kids, I mean, they're bombarded day in, day out with media, 24/7. There's a screen in front of their face, right here, 24/7.
Right, and choices have expanded.
Yeah.
You know, the choices have expanded for students. They don't have to, they check, they go here or here. What are they gonna major in, you know? Whereas, you know, a while back, I think that, I think there are more opportunities to some degree, but with that become a lot of choices and expectations.
And nowadays, students are all working. I mean, they're not working 5 or 10 hours a week the way
They're very distracted and
they're
fragmented.
working 30, 40 hours a week, and they feel
Right.
like they have to, not that they feel like they, some of them feel like they have to, they probably don't, but a lot of them they actually have to, because they're like supporting their family, and they're 18 years old.
I don't know, I think there's a lot to do with it, but I do feel too, like, now we have labels for it and
Yeah, we do, yeah, a lot of it's more recognized.
more women are working now, so there's more pressure.
It is.
Because you
at the
look
same
back and
time-
you see like, you know, all the artists that they
Yeah, I mean, we're
never
seeing it.
right, so, but now we
Yeah.
have
We're seeing it
medicines
more
for it.
too.
The number of-
Because now more people and more percentage of the population is going to college, so the push rate is more, you know.
More
historically-
pressures and.
Yeah, more pressures, and it could be that historically, it could be reasonably successful and
Maybe
not
people
college these
just
days, not as much anymore.
push through it, but now it's, you know, there's a name for it, we have a diagnosis for it, and there's a pill for it. I mean, in a way, it's miraculous, I mean, it's a good thing that there is, I mean, you know, 100 years ago, I guess, you know, none of us would have died in childbirth, we didn't have, I mean, I think about that a lot. I shouldn't think about that a lot. I mean, there's a lot of great breakthroughs, right, that
Yeah.
we're able to survive now.
Exactly, it's a toss-up between having the wonderful breakthroughs and opportunities and having one.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
And everybody isn't just being put under one label, you know, just like, autism. Now it's, it's been a spectrum disorder, but more so.
What did we just used to say that they're just strange?
Yeah,
but now
mentally
we,
retarded.
Right.
yeah, is that what that kid's just different?
Yeah.
You know, but now we have a label.
Mhm.
Which helps categorize it to, you know, try to help
So
them.
they can get some help, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, and since, accommodations are relatively becoming more and more common, and I think there are a lot of students who have accommodations and don't take them and everything.
They don't use them.
And I think there are a lot of students who have no idea, this is the worst case, they have no idea that they need accommodations.
Yeah.
Or that they could use accommodations.
One of the most frequent questions I get when I'm like tabling somewhere is, you know, well, she doesn't really have a disability, she's just dealing with depression or anxiety. You know, people don't see mental health issues as a disability, and it is.
I'm
Well,
just
and
tired,
that's-
I just can't sleep very well, I've just been busy.
Right.
I just have trouble, whatever, because I have too many things to do.
Right.
I mean, it's just so easy to give kind of obvious excuses, and they're just fine.
Yeah.
And to piggyback on that, if I may, that's because the nation doesn't see mental health.
No, I agree with you.
Funding has been cut severely for all of those services. And it looks like it's going to be happening again with all these regulation cutbacks.
Yeah.
I will also say to both of you while I have you here, I'm kind of glad I have both of you at the same time. By the way, I'm Don Burke. I teach in the Department of Education. I have a student, and I fear that this is going to be an exponential situation that we shall confront on campus. I have a student enrolled in one of my upper division courses who's a grandmother. And as a grandmother, she is grandmother of 2 children, and those children live with her. And I think she is legally their guardian. And this is because her daughter is a heroin addict. And she was missing my class. And, you know, and I tell the students right at the beginning of the semester, you know, in an upper division course, absences are viewed quite differently by faculty on this campus. And particularly in a professional licensure program, one of only 3.
Right.
And so she missed class again, and so I just called her aside one day after class, and I said, Mary, fictitious name, Mary, I strongly sense that there's something else going on in your life that maybe would help inform me as the instructor about how to best help you get services. And Dr. Andrazi can even verify that I've even discussed it with him about how we can help get some services going here. But nonetheless, as soon as I said that, it was like the pressure valve was released and she started crying profusely and continued to apologize and apologize. This is a non-traditional, much older female, and she's apologizing and apologizing, and I'm like, you do not need to apologize for this. This was out of your control. What your daughter decides to do, those are based on choices that she makes. But my concern is for the grandchildren. How are they responding to all of this? And she said the mother comes back long enough to get these children all upset and depressed again, and then she leaves and goes off on another drug binge somewhere. So, I mean, just as one faculty member that's already been confronted with this, and maybe there are others, but since we are in a state that has now been identified as the highest opioid usage in the country, I think we better get ready for this. We're going to need to, this is going to have to be a collaborative effort to help these children. And non-traditional.
I have had peer mentors who have told me that they live in the dorms, many of them are coordinators in the dorms, tell me they see it all the time. The freshmen come in and they kind of are whatever they are. Within about 3 months, they're either on drugs or not on drugs. The ones that go on drugs, their grades go crazy. They maybe even stay out the rest of the year. The second year, if they're lucky and they're smart, they're Narcs Anonymous. They come back their 3rd or 4th year after they come clean off the drugs.
Wow. Where
I have had more than one art resident coordinator tell me that they see this over and over again in February.
Well, I would agree with that because of behavioral indicators there, just as you mentioned. So I had a straight A student in my class, upper division class. He goes on to the next block of courses in our program, he's a social studies major. And he's just like dropped off the radar. He's not going to classes, his whole physical, you know, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think we've got to address this drug issue.
Yes. I absolutely agree.
And the grandmother, I mean, she is depressed.
Yeah.
She is in depression.
One thing we didn't talk about were like some of the resources, like counseling services. They do an excellent job, and even referring students out for assistance. I have students that I'll walk over to counseling services, so just so they can get some help right away. Yeah, but that is a really big one.
I've asked her to go. Janine here's asking me about this, you know.
Yeah.
I have asked her to go to counseling services and to go and talk about her depression and the confidentiality that's involved with all of that. And we can refer them, but we can't make them go.
No, you can't. you can also refer them, which probably is a much harder sell, to disability support services.
Or like VIT, I think.
Oh,
that's
and right, and then also
Are you on VIT?
I'm not on VIT, but it's
It
behavior
is a behavior
intervention.
intervention team, so even if she won't go to counseling, VIT meets like 2 hours every Monday morning, and it's these counselors, and this way her name could be on their radar and they could reach out to her. So, I mean, if you wanna, are you on that, Mary Beth?
No, but it comes out of my office, yeah.
Would you wanna give her name to Mary Beth, or do you
Well,
wanna?
here's what I've
Probably
done.
not.
Again, after my conversation with Dr. Androzzi, I have someone coming from Berkeley County
Okay.
to talk to all of my students.
Oh,
So she doesn't feel like she's,
Right.
you know, this information is being shared with both of my sections and upper division. So I'm trying to help her best psychologically manage all of this.
Right.
And see, 100 students.
But I will,
Yeah,
yes.
Dr. Wendell,
The
he
students, yeah.
is,
Then the university could reach out.
Okay, I'll keep that in
So if
mind.
you wanna reach out to her,
I will do that.
one of the kids that I work with, on
The
weekends,
name,
I
give
work
Mary
with,
Beth.
and Wendell, passed away, Sarah Wendell was her name.
Okay.
Yeah. So not only is this kid placement, but now he has to do it with this, you know, this computer.
Thanks, Larry.
It's just a lot.
Okay, yes, I know, we had you over,
No,
so.
that's okay. It was
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
In that,
Yeah. We're talking
forget
about,
what it's like to.
yeah, I think we did.
Well, there was some,
Yeah.
but well, this is made available. Can you make
yeah.
Yeah, we could, yeah, we put it on our site.
Yes.
Send it to me.
Because this is more informational,
No, that would be great.
important concepts about accommodation letters and
So,
DSS processes, so.
So for the
Okay,
intellectual disabilities, do you have students where you would know that they have the little
Usually when it comes to that, yeah, she'll get it, but it's a lot of times, that's the thing, like, I meant to point out on that slide, like, it has to be diagnosed before age 18, or before it's considered a level of disability.